Welcome back to Grand Tactician Civil War Union Campaign. So I had intended to basically move through the winter off camera since there wouldn't be much action going on. And I have done that for almost 2 months. However, there's some things happening which indicate we may see some midwinter action, so I decided to go ahead and record. But first, let me just kind of catch up on kind of the administrative, organizational things that have happened. At the national level, we did complete Military 2 and got government funding 1, which increased our credit rating for bonds. The credit rating situation is actually pretty good. For some reason, I was at triple B when I enacted this, or it might even have been double B plus. But in any case, the state of the economy, taxes, it's credit, basically I'm at AA minus right now, which is extremely good, despite the fact that I have spent quite a bit of money. That may change as I unpause time. And then the other thing I did was, had a few select divisions that had good weapons, but a lot of the Army's brigades were still on muskets, including basically all of the armies that weren't part of the Northern Virginia theater. McClellan's West Virginia Army, Grant's Army, the Missouri guys way out west, and the Trans-Mississippi. They were all still on mixed muskets. So I went ahead and took Diplomacy 1, which allows the import of Enfield and Lorenz rifles, which are pretty good. They're comparable to the Springfield rifle muskets. And as a result, not all, but probably 60, probably more like 70% of our fielded infantry are now rifle armed. So that's kind of on the national level. Naval, not much more to say about the blockade. The 6 main squadrons are still in place. The conventional sail frigates that I had been building did complete, and they've been apportioned out to these various blockade squadrons. So each of these is much stronger. I think they're still in transit. I don't believe that has translated yet to a visible increase in the blockade percentage, but that should happen soon. And then the one other thing that I've done is the naval battles aren't tactical. You just get a report of when they happen and what the results were. And we've done pretty well in capturing a fair number of Confederate vessels. Enough that I have organized a couple of more riverine squadrons to operate over here in the east, in these rivers coming off of the Chesapeake Bay. So this light squadron here, that was called the Chesapeake Light Squadron, and this is now the York River Squadron, and then I've created a Rappahannock Squadron and a Potomac Squadron. And the idea is I'm going to move these squadrons as far up these rivers as they can, as far as they are navigable. And in the case of the York and the Rappahannock, that's these two in the middle, That's basically just to increase visibility, get some more eyes, um, and hopefully, maybe to some extent, complicate the Confederacy's supply situation in the region. I don't know if it will or not. Seems like they should, but just as an example. Okay, so right here, that is a ferry, and it's a route across the Potomac from Virginia into Maryland, which we saw the Confederacy use earlier to come up here and attack Fort Washington. Ideally, and this is also a supply point, it's an infrastructure point. This can be a source of supply for the Confederacy because they hold it right now. Ideally, if there is a Riverine squadron sitting right here with a Kia landing within its combat radius, one would think that that would affect supply. And it also, one would think, would prevent a Confederate force from using this ferry to cross over. I don't know. It should. In the past, I haven't seen much evidence that that really happens. There was a patch a while back, not the most recent one, that said that naval forces should fire on land forces using river transport. I haven't actually seen that happen, and I don't know if that pertains to an army using a river crossing like a ferry or a bridge. It may not count for that because I don't know if they officially go into, or if they, actually in game terms go into river transport mode when using this ferry. I don't think so. But anyway, so these squadrons, the New York River Squadron is all, it was already in existence, so I'm already moving it up the York. And then as soon as these squadrons collect their ships and go to green readiness, then we'll move them up the Potomac and the Rappahannock. And then the final naval bit is very close now to completing the ironclad ships that I started last fall. So that's going to be an 8-ship monitor fleet, and it will be under the command of who else? It's going to be Farragut, of course. And I'm going to experiment, and I'm going to use that fleet to try to force open the James by reducing Fort Norfolk. From what I've read on Steam forums, Steam discussions, I think that's probably going to work. We'll see. That's the naval bit. I bumped up the size of these independent corps size armies a little bit. The defenses for St. Louis are complete, and I think they're actually all manned up now. Fort Carter may still have a brigade or a battery en route. But I also increased their size a little bit. Army of the Missouri was down around 4,500 to 5,000 men. I've bumped that up a little bit, given them a couple more units, given them another battery. And so this is now a 10,000 man unit, and that should help in I'm hoping that it helps build things a little faster. I don't know if that happens, but at very least, this should now be a fairly capable force against anything Confederate that it's going to run into out here in the Missouri, Arkansas area. Like somewhere out here, the Missouri State Guard Matter of fact, it says right here, there is one Confederate invasion in progress. The Missouri State Guard, 3,300, is apparently somewhere around here in the vicinity of this supply depot. I don't know if I'm particularly interested in chasing around all these roads through this forested area, which is about like West Virginia is as far as supply. But at least that option is available now. And Lyon's army may move down the river and get a little bit closer to some other Confederate forces, like this Army of the Mississippi that has started to form at Corinth. And then I did something similar with McClellan's army, which is here. He's up to about 13,000. And what I did with not only these armies, but also the corps and the larger armies, is I've now given every small army or corps a brigade or two of cavalry, which should improve their intelligence gathering, their vision, and would also be helpful as scouts and kind of a reserve force or flanking force or scouting force, as the case may be, if these forces ever do go into battle. So the Army of the Ohio is now a proper army. Grant is the commander. And this is just a headquarters unit here. There's no troops with this. It's just Grant. It says one, but of course his staff is with him. This is just Grant and his staff. And his former Army of the Ohio is now the 1st Corps under Rowley, who I've never heard of. But he kind of had okay looking stats, so I went ahead and put him in command of this thing. And then there's the 2nd Corps over here under General Schenck, who had been wounded early in the war over at Manassas Junction, but returned to availability. Recovered from his wound and still had pretty good stats, so that's what we have over here. The 2nd Corps was initially organized in, I think, early to mid-December. So it took quite a lot of time for Schenck to even gather those troops. They are all present now, but that's why they're still coming up in readiness in winter quarters near Louisville. And then the 1st Corps, having existed for a while as an army, their readiness is fine. And most of these troops, not all but most, are now rifle armed, whereas they were all mixed muskets before. I created one other small independent army. Army of the Chesapeake is currently organizing in Delaware. I just started this one up, and the idea for this army, none of the brigades or anything are there yet, so this is going to take a while to put together. They won't be ready till probably April, which is fine. That's when the campaigning season opens. The idea of this force is not very big, but we've got, well, it's fair sized. 2 divisions of 3 brigades each, with 3 artillery batteries. And the purpose of this force is hopefully to cooperate with that ironclad fleet and sail those guys down here to take this fort after the ironclads have beat it down and capture Norfolk. And then that'll serve as an additional force which could tie down some Confederate forces, like keep Hampton from moving, or might continue moving down the coast and help take Fort Macon and Morehead City down to Wilmington, that sort of thing. But this is intended to be kind of a coastal force that works along the coast and works on taking forts and ports and things like that. And then that brings us to the main theater. And so I've now formed the Union Army of the Potomac. McDowell had been doing well all through, except for that one kind of glitch that I imposed with my ill-timed save game. Other than that, McDowell had been doing fine, gained some experience. He's got, I think, maximum fame. And so, just stuck with a winner. So, you start the campaign at whatever date that you do, and it's the historical guys. The game started, the forces you have, they have historical commanders in place. But then as the war goes, you get more and more and more kind of in this alt history thing. And, the real McDowell had a decent plan, but didn't, the first battle of Manassas, the first battle of the war, first big battle, didn't turn out well for him. And so other guys came up in his stead, and he kind of got sidelined. Well, this McDowell won his battles. Several of them. So, he's scooting right on up the chain. And then those three armies have been renamed 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Corps, the Army of the Potomac. Same commanders, Patterson and Hooker, for the 2nd and 3rd Corps. In the 1st Corps, when McDowell moved up, Tyler had been doing well in command of the 1st Division. So Tyler moved up to command of the Corps, and Sherman, I think, promoted up to take command of the 1st Division. And organizationally, I added another brigade to each of these corps. They were 9 brigades. I added a full-size brigade, so each corps has one 4-brigade division, and that combined bumped us up about 9,000 men. And then I did similarly. I gave each corps an extra division of a 2-brigade division of cavalry. So the infantry force didn't increase that much, but we've got a fair amount of cavalry in the Army of the Potomac now. So that was kind of what was happening over the winter, and what just started happening is the Confederate Army of the Potomac, last seen under the command of Longstreet. It could be somebody different now. We don't see that. Was camped over here near Manassas, just kind of hanging out. But then, a few days ago, in the middle of January, started moving right over here, came right up the railroad, and is currently in the process of capturing Alexandria, where, while in winter quarters, one of these corps, I don't remember which, but while in winter quarters, it was close enough, was also building a fort. So, option 1, just let them capture it, recapture it when the spring opens up. Or number 2, not let them get away with that. And despite the conditions, the weather conditions, cross the river and force them out and keep Alexandria under the control of the Union. And I think I'm going to do option B. Because it's not just about Alexandria. It's also, each one of these cities kind of controls infrastructure points around it. So interestingly, right now, because Alexandria for the moment is Union, And because Longstreet moved away from it a little bit, this supply depot is actually considered Union at the moment. You know what? That might change when I unpause. The point being, these named towns on the map, the bigger towns, they control the smaller points around them. I don't want to give Alexandria up. And just by default, have Virginia completely under Confederate control again. So, they don't have to go very far. I don't think we're going to suffer much attrition, but I am going to push all 3 corps of the Army of the Potomac just over the river. I'm pushing all 3 because I don't know that I necessarily want to fight a battle in the winter. All those attrition and weather effects and everything occur on the tactical map too. So I'm going to push all 3 corps across, ideally so that Longstreet simply retreats. And he might complete the capture of Alexandria before that fully comes into play, but we'll just capture it right back. And then I would not be adverse to retaking these 2 forts that I built and the Confederates took, both of which have apparently have very low garrison levels. So I don't think it will be too difficult to get those back under Union control. It's kind of a little short midwinter maneuvering here, which could turn into a battle, but I don't really think so. That big plume of smoke is Fort Washington came under not 1 but 2 sieges, which were successful from our end. We drove the Confederates back, but the fort condition was driven way down in the process. All right, let's get these corps. I'm just going to shift the map a little bit so I can see a little bit better around this plume of smoke. Here we go. First, I'm just going to get them right up into DC, just to ensure that they all cross at the same time. There's first corps. It's hard to click on. Yep, Longstreet's moving. He from across the river, he is besieging that's just historical flavor. Battle Hymn of the Republic has been published. It's out there now. Okay, well, so Third Corps is now locked into the siege. I'm going to send the First Corps and the Second Corps right across into Alexandria. Well, everyone's involved in this siege now. Way in our favor. And as soon as that siege resolves, Longstreet will retreat, and I think we'll just capture Alexandria right back. The presence of these corps should just stop Alexandria from being captured. And I don't see the percentage going up, so maybe they are. Now, the other thing is that, you know, I was almost done with this fort, so I didn't want it to get, you know, I wanted to maintain. There comes the army of the Shenandoah. This is kind of shaping up to something. Oh, they do. He's going down the river. Coming up at Washington from this way. How many men does this army have now? I haven't seen them for a while. Still 12,000. Turn the map around back to north. See how much further. I think this squadron can go up to here. I think that's probably can't sail up to this point. Can they go here? No, that's as far as you can go. All right, go there. These squadrons are up to yellow readiness. You know what? He'll eventually go on the Rappahannock, but for the moment, let's put him here. I thought. Maybe they can't move yet? That squadron can. Why can this squadron not move yet? Oh, his ships aren't ready. 6 ships, but 6 disabled, 0 guns. Yeah, he's still waiting for his ships to arrive. So why is he showing yellow readiness? I don't know. That doesn't make sense. Potomac Squadron's got enough force, though. So my idea is if I can put these river squadrons down here, that might, or might not, but it might block the Army of the Shenandoah from getting back across the river. Bringing in Polk. Oh, that supply depot has been burned down. This battery's broken, but the brigade in the fort is confident. This is apparently going to last for a while. This tooltip says 49% chance of victory. Confederacy has selected King Cotton 3. Trying to force that intervention. I forgot to mention earlier, the policy I'm working on now is the final Militia Act for 36-month enlistments. And that will pretty much maximize the size and the term length of what we can do with volunteer troops. To expand the manpower pool beyond that, we're going to have to introduce a draft, which will give us lots of guys, but their morale will be inherently lower. So I'm kind of hoping that we can do what we need to do with 36 months. Oh, got to get time going. I've got this unhappy nerf to Patterson's Corps. There aren't any defamed officers in command of any of the units in that corps, but I think that there's, man, I can't look at them right now with the siege going on, I think. But somewhere in there is a unit that has gained some experience to the point where they're not real happy with their commander anymore because he's not well known enough. That's kind of the effect of the fame system. At once the unit makes a name for itself by getting experience and bumping up in stars, you know, they want a shit hot commander. And if it's, even if a guy's got pretty good stats in administration and cunning and so forth, if he's not well known, they don't like that. So I need to pick through those brigades and try to figure out which. Oh, well, crap. This tooltip tells you. All right, I've got 4 units in that Longnecker, Wynkoop, Negley, and Arnold. So I need to do that as soon as this battle's over. Or siege, I should say. So this is slower and it could take a while, but it should wind up being lower casualties overall. And just the act of taking part in this siege is going to slowly build up experience and stats and stuff with their various commanders and units as well. Okay, this additional squadron is now ready. For some reason he's not, don't have his pip. Just put him there. I want to be able to see his icon on the map. There we go. Could put him in blockade. Don't want to put him in raid, not on the Potomac River. Patrol. And blockade stance is fine for these guys. actually, if I move the Potomac Squadron right up in here, will that have any effect? Seems like it should, but I don't know if it is. Move over here and make sure that this crossing is within this squadron's combat radius. Does the Chesapeake have all of its troops yet? It does. I don't think this squadron is in any way involved. Three Federal Corps, one garrison. Yeah, it's not part of this battle. And given that Longstreet was attacking across the Potomac River to besiege Fort Washington, it seems like having these having the squadron here should have an effect. Apparently not. The garrison itself is in panic status. That's not good. France is invading Mexico. There is a battle going on in the Gulf of Mexico. Ooh, this isn't going in our favor. Why it's not going in our favor, I have no idea. These are fourth-rate steamers up against much larger ships. $169 firepower against 20 firepower. I think that's going to turn out fine. Yeah, sank 2, captured 2 others. Cox was wounded early in the war. He is back in service. Don't know if I particularly want him back in service. Got us a couple more little steamers. Go into our little pool of, ooh, these are all, those are all now ready as well. Okay, we have our 36-month policy. It's an act, actually. The policies, what counts against this number here, those are the major policies on these red lines. As these get unlocked, it unlocks specific acts. So all these militia acts, they do not count toward this 6 out of 7 used policies. And things like the legal blockade did not, Emancipation Proclamation, letters of marque. So I think I'm going to bump up industrialization. Am I? I've got 188 men fielded with an 82,000 volunteer pool. I'm not feeling compelled to go for the draft yet. I can increase the volunteer pool by recruitment bounties, but that messes with morale. I don't feel a need to do this. Credit rating is okay. Yeah, I think this is a good time to go ahead and lay on another level of, let me look at these over here. Tariffs. Make the Europeans mad again. But it'll increase income. Doing industrialization. I think most of these unit routed floating messages here are coming from Longstreet's Corps. The garrison itself is broken. But we've now got Corps brigades engaged. So, yeah, and the bar is increasingly heading in our direction. I think our ironclads should be ready by now. They are. wonder if it's possible. No. Yeah, it's one at a time. I tried to use shift or control to grab a group. There's our ironclad squadron. And then once they've done their work on forts, if needed, down there, may want them somewhere else. So I'm going to create a separate James River squadron to do the same job on the James that these other squadrons are doing up here further north on these other rivers. I think Foote is a fine commander for that. Everything that's 100% for now. It's plenty big. Zoom out and zoom in, and the proper names will show if you changed them. And there we go. Fort Washington, strategic victory, get ground. It always says the same thing. Almost 2,000 men. We lost over 2,000. We did take more casualties. I think that was probably primarily in the fort garrison. Longstreet withdrawing. Yeah, and it's still considered winter, even though it's March. The weather will clear up in a couple weeks, and that'll be long enough for us to restore whatever supplies we need to, which shouldn't be that many. Actually, no. While they're in this retreat mode, with low morale, I want to get over here and take these forts. So, yeah, First Corps. While these Confederate field forces are not able to support them. Okay, Fort Mackey is under siege. Well, so much for that idea. Army of the Shenandoah just pops right across. Oh, Hooker's not moving. Maybe don't need him to. All right, so a little winter siege warfare there, and we've reestablished control over our little sliver of northern Virginia in advance of the campaign season, which will be coming up shortly because we've only got a few days left in March, and April 1st, all the weather effects should lift. Let's see here. As a matter of fact, not seeing weather effects now for the First Corps. And we've taken Fort Hooker. Okay. I think that will do it for now. And thank you for watching. See you for the next episode.